Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. It's a pleasure to be with you all once again. And I think 40 years back when we were doing residency, the question would have been whether imaging, CT scan or MRI, is it mandatory? Because we were in era when they were just coming and we were doing topographic localization using the visual fields in our brains. Now we are in the age in which OCT has come in a big way, and it is helping us, the neuro-ophthalmologists. We need to discuss how and what. The role of OCT in neuro-ophthalmology, it's a very important thing to understand because it's non-invasive, non-contact technique that uses low coherence interferometry to obtain high resolution images, cross-sectional images in vivo of the anterior and the posterior segment of the eye. And in case of neuro-ophthalmology, we are concerned with the retina and the optic nerve. It has come through an evolution of the time domain OCT, then the spectral domain, then the enhanced depth imaging, the swept source imaging OCT, and then the OCTA angiography, and now more recently the AO married with the OCT, the adaptive optics OCT, and of course the 3D imaging. We have come to understand the Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's diseases in a much better way because eye is the window to the brain. And conditions like papilledema can be easily differentiated in a non-invasive manner from pseudopapilledemas. Optic nerve lesions, whether they are the optic disc drusen's or the foams, the peripapillary hyperreflective ovoid mass lesions or melanomas or benign melanocytomas, the optic neuropathies, ischemic, hereditary or toxic, compressive, infiltrative. In all, there is some role of optical coherence tomography. Recently, an overview on optical coherence tomography, I came across the Annals of Eye Science, and I would recommend everybody to read this beautiful review article. It describes the figure I have borrowed from there, and it shows how the evolution has happened from a fundus photography to the traditional color fundus, from that to the TD, the status domain, time domain one, and then to the spectralis, and then coming to the OCTA, and finally to the 3D imaging. The last one image is very dear to me because it's the three-dimensional reconstruction, and it gives you a real live picture as if you're seeing. It further goes on to show in detail how the imaging of this is done. And in this figure C, you can see a drusen, which is shown, and in the D, you can see a foams. As I said, this is the hyperreflective ovoid mass lesion, which is peripapillary. And so OCT in neuro-ophthalmology, it's a very helpful technique. We can see these conditions as I just mentioned. For the deeper structures, the enhanced depth imaging gives us the answers which are required. I'll just show you a case. Now, this case came to me with a sudden blackout. There was peripheral vision loss. He was the recipient kidney transplant, and he was hypertensive, but was well regulated according to him. He had a COVID about a month back, and he had recovered from it. He was on alfuzosin for his prostatic problem, and he had stopped the blood thinner just 4 days back. His vision was 6/6 in both eyes, but if you see the fundus, you'll see there was a appearance of a blurred disc margin and a pallid disc in this. So one would naturally clinically suspect, think the fields will show an inferior altitudinal defect in the right eye. You can see this. And if you see the OCT, it classically shows you, and then the comparison of the right and the left eye keeps the picture, everything clear on your in front of you. This is the advantage. It's very good for documentation, and the clarity with which it can define even the minor deficiencies is there. Even, for example, optic neuritis, this can be shown on the OCT very well, as this picture, which is again from a very nice article from Kerala Journal of Ophthalmology, which I would again recommend people to read. This is showing you in optic neuritis. Again, in toxic optic neuropathy, you can see the corroboration of the visual fields which are affected in both the eyes, and the correlation with the OCT is very nicely shown, how the segments are involved. Again, in the compressive optic neuropathy, one can see the change which is happening in the fields and the corroboration. In one eye, in this case, there was a total loss of field, and the other eye, there was a quadrantanopia. So it was like a junctional scotoma, and we can see the changes in the OCT very nicely corroborating with the fields that are there. The role of angiography, the OCT angiography is now coming up. There is again a beautiful survey article by one of our colleagues, Dr. Amar Pujari, who has shown a review of all the OCT angiography which is there. So short of time, I may not go into the details, but I would recommend all of you to read this nice survey major review which is there. The OCTA is basically reconstructing the images, the motion sensitive contrast images, which are, so this is a sort of proxy for fluorescent angiography. It doesn't actually give you the leakage, but it will give you the vessels, and the motion is sensing by that, and we can get that. The role of OCT in papilledema is again an important thing that we need to remember. Traditionally, we know that the RNFL thickness is higher in both papilledema and the papillitis, and more so in the papilledema. But a study done by us in RP Center by Dr. Paniala showed that there is an interesting thing. If you do a cube on the optic nerve head, you can see the Brooks membrane RPE angle, which is in normal cases pointing away from the vitreous. So there is a minus 5.32 angle made in normal people. Now to compare this in papilledema, you'll find that the angle is reversed. It's a positive, and it may be much more in a more severe papilledema. It's up to plus 15. And this is something which is very interesting in papillitis. Interestingly, you will see that the RP Brooks membrane angle, although sometimes papillitis cases may be confusing as far as the picture is concerned, but the Brooks membrane and the RPE does not confuse you. It clearly shows you a normal presentation. Now we have the adaptive optics, which is now married to OCT, and it has improved the imaging properties of the OCT by using the adaptation of aberrometry cancellation. And as you can see in this picture, a simple picture on OCT taken, and then on the two sides you can see the AO OCT, which gives you a much more clear focus structure. We had done a study on the AO SLO, and on this, as you can see, we had done the Voronoi diagrams, and we have seen that the cone densities can be easily picked up. So to conclude, OCT role in neuro-ophthalmology is immense. In today's world, we need to use OCT not only for documentation and the prognostication and monitoring of cases, but also as a research tool in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, differentiating papilledema from pseudopapilledemas, optic nerve lesions like the optic disc drusen, which may sometimes confuse you with papilledema or the foams or the melanoma or the melanocytomas, optic neuropathies of all kinds. It will be helpful in knowing. And finally, just if you could dissociate your eyes and see this, you will have a reconstruction of a 3D picture. And this is a novel interactive display of OCTA. So thank you all for this. Thank you once again, Swati.